All right. We'll talk very, hopefully briefly about the Oklahoma City Thunder, the trade they just executed, and kind of their summer at large because all their moves have been motivated by the same point, and it's money. And also the Dallas Mavericks and Atlanta Hawks got in on this, and I'll touch on what they did because I think what they did largely is pretty good. The Thunder, very expensive, and they had already offloaded Isaiah Joe and Aaron Wiggins this summer. The two of them combined to make about 20.5 million this upcoming season, and they weren't done yet. Lu Dort, fan favorite guy, I believe that they got maybe undrafted slash either second round pick. Developed him, ended up becoming a quite good player. He had a team option for 18.2222 million or something, according to Basketball Reference, and they exercised the option and they've just traded him to the Atlanta Hawks. The Thunder are getting second round picks in the deal. They get 3 second round picks, and then this is the interesting thing is that the Hawks then shipped Zachary Ricochet to the Mavericks, and the Mavericks sent Ryan Nemhard to Atlanta. So functionally, Atlanta traded Zachary Ricochet 3 second round picks to get Lu Dort, who's in the final year of his deal, is entering his age 27 season, I believe, and will want an extension. And then the Mavericks turned Ryan Nemhard into former number one overall pick Zachary Ricochet. So real quick with the Mavericks, I think them hopping in and getting a former number one overall pick, admittedly in a very weak draft, he's not someone that would have went with number one overall in most drafts, right? So, but still, if you go number one overall, probably in most drafts, you're going to be drafted in the top five. And the Mavericks don't have a ton of their own picks, and they're trying to reorganize around Cooper Flag, who looks like he's going to be good pretty quickly. So they're not going to be able to do the whole like, well, we can kind of just stink and slowly build this up, collect draft picks, build up a team and go. It's like they're already out picks and they have a guy who's going to make it hard to be bad. So I think this is just a good play on their part, basically just saying like, hey, maybe we can get him to reach his potential. And if they can, it's great, but it costs them basically like, at if we're going to be charitable to the other Nemhard, probably like at best a third guard, and that's just I think a massive win for them. For Atlanta, this is interesting to me just on account of like they've seemingly been biding their time a bit. This with how they're building the roster, they moved on from Trey Young. They haven't been super aggressive in the offseason or anything. And so this to me sounds like they think Ricochet is just like not that, like not going to be good. That they made a mistake with the number one overall pick, because Lu Dort is a good player, but realistically he's very limited. And there's a world where Ricochet is basically as good as Lu Dort in 2 seasons, just due to the age, due to the fact that like he's got better size in terms of height and length, and he's much more capable of doing stuff off the bounce, and all of that. So, and then the Hawks are going to have to extend Dort. Presumably, they have a good idea of what he wants. I would imagine, something in the neighborhood of like a 4 year, 20 million a year kind of salary range. So like 4 years, 85 million, 4 years up to like 4 years, 100 million. I don't know how high they're going to go, but that would be my guess. For Atlanta, I just fine. Like it makes them better this upcoming season. I think but I just don't like Dort doesn't really help them in the one area that they kind of need the most help in, which is just like someone who can actually create half court offense. Like they brought back CJ McCollum mainly because like they kind of desperately needed him. He had a few good games in the playoffs against the Knicks, but you know Dort doesn't help you there, and this is still a team that it feels like they're perfectly built to bring in a real tier one guy. And that's not a bad place to be, but they have to do that. So we'll see if they do. Just because like Ricochet could end up becoming a pretty good player, and that they'll look real dumb if they do. If they drafted a dude number one overall, gave up on him very quickly for Lu Dort, right? And like Ricochet, like he hasn't been good, but if he were to show some real development in year three, he'd be great. Someone would be like, yeah, we'll take him as part of this star trade. So I really like the Mavericks, what the Mavericks did there, and the Hawks. I'm a little bit more confused. I'm not confused, like I get it, but it just kind of feels weird. And like he makes a lot of money, and he's not very good right now because he's number one overall pick. So it's almost like just moving off his salary to bring in Dort's salary. So yeah, they also get Nemhard, who's like, will probably help their guard rotation. But Dort is like a limited player. He's a good defender. He's a good defender. He shot well from three for a period. I think this past season he kind of fell off a little bit. Teams don't really cover him too much in the playoffs, and he's really pitiful within the arc. Good player, useful player, can help you win. Obviously, at a really high level as he did with Oklahoma City. But yeah, it's. I'm surprised because it felt like the Hawks were biding their time and keeping Ricochet would have been perfectly fine with that strategy. And this is more of a all not all in, but like they're going for it in some capacity. And yeah, like Dort is older, so we'll see. But let's talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder. So they've spent this entire offseason shedding salary. The luxury tax threshold this season, I think, is supposed to be at around 200 million. The first apron, 209 million. The second apron at 221. After the draft, the Thunder would be at 253 million in salary for 2026-27. That's way over the second apron. And they, as I said earlier, they moved Joe and Wiggins to drop about 20.5, but that's still 20, yeah, about 223 million, which is still over that threshold. And by moving off of Lu Dort and those guys, they're now down to 214.798 or so in salary commitments for 2026-27, which is below that second apron. So, and it gives them a little bit of wiggle room. They get a trade exception. They get these 3 second round picks. They've acquired a bunch of second round picks, I think 7 total through those 3 trades. But they moved off 3 good players on 3 good contracts because they just like absolutely had to. And this is what the league, I think, presumably was hoping for with the second apron. Now, one of the reasons I don't know why, like I feel like the small market owners always kick themselves in the nuts by accident, because the reality is the second apron's like punitive as fuck, but a large market can weather that stuff way better than a small market. And so these small markets trying to base and with poor owners as well. It's like them trying to go after like the Clippers, the Knicks, the Lakers, well, the Lakers now, probably not really the Lakers before, but these large market teams that are appealing with deep pocketed owners, like all these measures that they've made to like go after them so they can't outspend everyone. Well, when they get good, they get fucked way harder. Like as much as it's like owners should just pay this stuff when they have a really good team, uh, it's they're less capable of doing that than without like paying out of their own pocket, which maybe they fucking should. But um, so yeah, it's one of these things where it's like, oh, like we want to make sure Steve Ballmer can't outspend us. Well, it's like, well, when you get good, you're in way more trouble than he would be. So yeah, and the thing that's interesting for the Thunder is they're already doing this, and one of the reasons they're doing it is not just because they would be over the second apron this season. It's because they're not even close to being as expensive as they're going to be going forward. So this is the final year of SGA's previous contract. So his supermax kicks in 27, 28, and he goes from making 40 million, 40.8 million this upcoming season to 61 million. Before they made those moves, they were set to pay 257 million in salary commitments, and that was like, they would have had basically a full roster, but they're going to be, and that would have also required them losing Lu Dort, right? Just letting him go for nothing. Um, so like this isn't over for them. The salary shedding, they're basically going to have to be shedding salary in all likelihood uh, every summer, because Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams are on the flat 25% maxes. And like, honestly, the fact that Jalen Williams was hurt this season and didn't make all NBA and didn't get bumped up to a 30% or 27 and a half, I think his supermax rookie scale supermax language didn't guarantee 30% from just just for making third team all NBA. I think it was tiered, but still, like, they're just in a situation because of how expensive SGA, Chet, and Jalen Williams are going to be, that they're going to have to start shedding salary. Like, they got a little relief this year by basically declining Hartenstein's option and like negotiating a new one. They saved a little money there. But Alex Caruso next season will be 33, making 21 million. He might be gone. And so they're well set up to deal with this, right? Like, they've basically built this team, and with their asset base, it's going to be their hope is it's going to be incredibly sustainable. Being basically using the draft to round out the back of their roster, or use those picks to get veterans who can help them, who are on contracts that fit basically their wage scale at this point. And like, we'll see, like, Nikola Topic basically hasn't played due to like injury and cancer. He's only 20 and he'll be making 5 million next season, 5.4 million. Like, they kind of need him to be able to do something. And then AJ Mitchell, he's making 2.8 million, and then he's got a 2.8 million team option for next season, 2027-28. Like, it's going to be tough for them to like figure out a way to like keep him. He's a little bit older, so he's not going to get like a crazy contract, I don't think, but like, he's a really good player and they kind of desperately need him, with the way the roster is currently set up. And they also kind of need to like opt in, exercise that team option to keep him, because they, like, if they bump up his pay, they're just going to have to offload someone else. So the Thunder, they're going to be really good next year as long as SGA is healthy, right? Like, he's that level of player where especially with the depth they have and the quality they have, like, they're just going to be really good as long as he's healthy. And Jalen Williams comes back healthy. Like, if they win 64 games again, like, no surprise. Isaiah Joe and Aaron Wiggins, good players, but like, kind of didn't trust them in a playoff series, even when they desperately needed shooting. Lu Dort, good player, also kind of couldn't trust him in a playoff series, but they're getting all these second round picks, they're offloading salary, and it's just going to keep going. And next offseason, they have to figure out, what the fuck are we going to do with Kasam Wallace? They might try to get an extension done with him now, but like, once again, just like putting that money on the books is going to be tough. And it might just make sense to trade him this year. And he's really important to their team. And this is what the NBA wanted. They wanted this exact thing to be the case, where teams that are good can't keep their team together. So they basically just can't be good for as long. And I personally don't really like it. And we're kind of seeing where, like, teams that are making teams that are making these deep runs, playoff runs, like, they have like maybe 3 seasons with like a single pretty good core before they either have to like offload all of the role players and just go the minimum draft route, or they have to offload some of those players, right? Like, Jaylen Brown got offloaded. I think partially it was just because when the Celtics extended him to that, I think, supermax, I thought it was insane. I never thought he's a 35% of the salary cap player. Some people feel some type of way about that. I feel like I'm being gaslit all summer. But because the cap isn't going to rise at 10%, like most people projected a few years back, there are these teams that handed out contracts back then going, fuck, like we always knew it was going to be tight, giving a guy, this much money, but his raises were going to get outpaced by the salary cap raises, and it would basically we just be finding money. And what you're seeing is the salary cap isn't projected to grow more than 8% going forward for a period of time, even with all the national television money. And it's largely due to the collapse of these regional cable networks, which, maybe the league figures something out and they kind of offset that. But so like all these teams handed out contracts and were like totally cool giving guys 8% raises to keep the costs down in the first seasons because like, well, like he's going to count less against the cap than he did before, because the cap's growing faster than those 8% raises. And that's just not what we're seeing now. So this is the future of the league, or at least the short-term future. I still think a team will go above the second apron and win a championship, and teams will stop treating it as a hard cap. I think basically ownership, it's the team president runs the basketball operations and the owner is Congress. So they control the purse. I know this doesn't make sense in the current political climate, but since they control the purse, they're like, oh, well, the second apron, man, like we just can't go above it because it makes your job harder and it's just too difficult to build the championship roster. No team in the second apron won the championship, right? Like, so, but once a team does, I think it will kind of thaw the ice because, this happens whenever they put these more stringent, like, the luxury tax, penalties, get worse. There's the repeater tax. Like, it's this, it kind of scares people off because it's a valid excuse for ownership to just tell their front office like, no, we're not spending that much money. I don't give a fuck. But then when teams do and they're successful, it's kind of hard to be like, it's like, well, boss, like, do you want to win? Because look at what they're doing. I've probably made this point in videos before, but I stand by it. Someone's going to win the title in the second apron. It might not be this year because I don't think anyone's going there, but someone's going to do it because they want to win. And it might be the Cavs this season, but someone's going to do it, and people are going to go, oh shit, like maybe we shouldn't have been pinching pennies just for these like, draconian punishments that are so severe. I mean, it's like really mostly financial, because like, oh, we lose our, like, you lose the mid-level exception, like you lose all these things that are great, but at the same time, it's like those things are not that powerful for bringing in good talent anyways. And even if you do get a good player, it means you're not spending any fucking money, so your team's probably not that fucking good. So yeah, so like it'll be interesting. Wembanyama took less money, but the Spurs, people like are view them as like being the main foil for the Thunder going forward in the West, and we'll see. Like De'Aaron Fox is already on a max, I think a 30% max. Wembanyama's gonna be on the 25. What are Stephon Castle and what are Dylan Harper going to get? They're going to have to make a decision. They'll probably try to trade De'Aaron Fox, which makes the most sense, but that's still losing a player who's good. I mean, he's way overpaid, but my general rule of thumb is like outside of the Gary Trent Jr. situation, which I haven't really talked about, but who really cares? Like, I don't give a shit about salary cap circumvention because, as you can tell, I fucking hate the salary cap. I think it's stupid. Just let these dudes get paid. Who gives a fuck? I'm sure the small market fans go, oh, it's not fair. It's like, you know what? You guys still never fucking win really anyways. Like Oklahoma City's the exception. Like you just have to get lucky and get one of the top 5 guys. That's how you win a title, period. But yeah, so the Thunder are going to be shedding salary pretty much every summer, and they're going to hope that their scouting and development system is good enough with all the picks they have coming in to basically continuously refresh this roster. I don't think the foresight that they had in setting this up was really impressive. I don't think this was why they did it, to be completely honest, because the current rules I don't believe were in place when they really started the rebuild and started taking on picks. But I do think they realized that the thing that kills championship teams is a lack of assets, a lack of ability to go and make moves that you need. And I think they were setting all these draft picks up to be able to make trades to improve the roster, and less so about just picking players. Obviously, if you get a great high pick, you use it. But if not, I think it was more about like, oh, we can use these; they're valuable, and go get guys. And then the rules changed, and just so happened it meant that their stockpile of picks became very important, and they might not be they're probably not going to use them as much as they intended to go out and make trades, and more so just for bringing in cost controlled talent. And like, I wouldn't be surprised if they like out of one of these, picks they got from someone else, if it ends up being like the seventh or maybe not seventh, if it ends up being like the 10th pick. Don't be shocked if like they look at the 10th pick salary slot and say, if we can turn this into the 17th pick and a pick next year that we don't have to think about until next year, like they might start doing that just to make sure the salary figures are there, as long as there's a guy that they think they can get that they like and all that stuff. Obviously, those caveats. So, anyways, the Thunder are going to be really good next year, but the league rules are putting a ton of pressure on their ability to maintain this current level. And basically, SGA is going to his age 28 season. So I think this run's got maybe two, three, maybe four more years, depending obviously on the development of Chet and Jalen Williams. But like, I think once SGA is not one of the five best players in the league, it's going to be tough for them no matter what. It's always tough for anyone. But like, this idea that they were going to have a decade runway, like people say that shit all the time. And I'm just like, man, it's not like that, right? They were great. Obviously, last season they were great. The season before that, they won the title. The year before that, they were the one seed. And so, they're probably going to 5, 6, 7 years, which is about as extended of a run as you're going to get in the current NBA with the current structure. I don't love it, but them the facts.